Hey everyone, Nicole here with Dear Teacher Instructional Coaching. Today I am going to be giving you an update and what I have learned through personalized / self-paced learning. Well, just for starters, my district is going to a hybrid model. That is official. We have figured that out. We are having half the students there Monday, Tuesday. Wednesday is entirely virtual and they will, clean the entire building. And then on Thursday, Friday, we have the second group of students. And the 3 days that the students aren't face-to-face with their teachers, there are virtual learning experiences for them to participate in that we as teachers will create. So it seems like now, more than ever, it is absolutely perfect timing to tackle the task of self-paced or personalized learning for students. So this is I'm just, this year is going to be completely different and completely unknown. So I might as well just throw caution to the wind and try something different and see how it goes, because there's not going to be success unless we take risks. So I dove right in. So this was kind of my sequence of events that have gone on so far. So I looked at our plan and kind of what we have going on for our first quarter, minus the first 2 weeks, which is very SEL focused. But looking at, what happens for the remainder of that quarter one, because that's where I'm zooming in. It's just quarter one. I looked across the units, I viewed the standards, and then I typed them up. And some people don't want to take that step, but for me, I wanted to see across the entire quarter, what do I have that I have to teach? And in those two huge units, minus the first 2 weeks, and the other 2 huge units that take place in those first 9 weeks, there is only one standard that is not repeated. All of the others are. I don't think I would have totally discovered that had I not gone through and been, looking within each category. So the category of writing content, the category of writing conventions, the category of reading, the category of presentation, and where we fit our standards into those categories, looking at, which ones are repeated, every single one of them, except one. That makes my life really easy, actually, because I can do then kind of a mega hybrid type thing, hitting all these standards, and I just have to make sure that I squeeze that one that isn't repeated in there. But since it's, I have to adjust how much I'm going to give focus to that standard. So anyways, I type them all back up. So I just have on my OneDrive, quarter one, standards to assess. Got them listed because that's what I'm responsible for teaching and assessing in the first quarter. So then I sat back and I looked at our whole curriculum plan and was like, what are the big ideas and the skills? Let's take this skill base. I don't care what we're reading. I want to know the skill. And so I broke that down for myself. I've got the big ideas. I've got the skills. I wrote those down because that makes a really big difference for me personally. That's just how I function in an organized fashion. So then the third thing I did after I looked at those big ideas and the skills that were absolutely necessary, so compare and contrast using a T-chart, for example, summary writing, CER, claim evidence reasoning, those are that's type of skilled writing that I need to make sure that I'm teaching those specific skills, because then science and social studies will roll those into after I kind of introduce is how we work it at our school. So looked at those big idea skills, and then step 3 was I thought about a theme, as we usually do. We usually think about how can I have like this continuing thread throughout all of this and have this theme. And so I settled on the theme of perseverance, and I wasn't 100% sold on it, but I'm like, yeah, I could make that work. I mean, whatever. And then I sat back and I thought, and I thought, and I thought, and I thought, and I thought. And I didn't feel good. I didn't feel comfortable. I didn't feel confident. I did not know the next step, and I thought about it and thought about it and thought about it. And as we ask our kids to do, if we don't know something, we need to model this for our students, right? If we don't know something, we need to go out and find the answer. So I attended Northern Cass's first ever personalized learning institute. And they had it entirely virtual, and they had awesome speakers, and they had a keynote by Dave Burgess, and it was just, and they had breakout sessions. It was awesome. And basically you were also making like connections with these people virtually. So I did my research. I found this conference. I'm like, you know what? I'm gonna give it a go. It's 2 days. I'm gonna give it a go. And holy buckets, I am super happy I did. So after I did my thinking, then I did my research and attended a conference. And now I'm revamping how I was thinking. So there's a few things, and a part of this, so one of Northern Cass's language arts teachers, Britt Breland, I attended her breakout session, and it was the title of it was, so what does this actually look like? And I'm like, that's exactly my question. That is exactly my question. I'm struggling with that aspect of it right now, is I don't know the next step. I don't know what this actually looks like. And like, thank you to her for hitting the nail on the head with the fact that in language arts, we do things, it's more cyclical. We come back to standards over and over, whereas, science, linear, math, linear, social studies, linear. And it's language arts is such a different beast. And that's the part that I was getting stuck on, is I have these standards that I hit multiple times a year. I don't know where my start is. It's not like math where I know that I have to add before I can subtract, that I have to subtract before I can multiply, and I don't have that linear line. So her suggestion, so language arts teachers, here you go. You could technically have a consistent theme if you wanted, but how it is best to structure personalized learning for language arts is in our 3 broad categories: reading, writing, grammar. So you have your specific reading focus, and if it, like, your reading standards. So plot development and characterization, they need to prove to you that they understand characterization, and they need to prove to you that they understand plot development. And then, and so you have that, okay, so I know how to start them with characterization, and I know what they want, and so now that is linear. Writing, I know that we start with that topic sentence. We brainstorm, we topic sentence. And then we have our evidence. And then we have our explanation that connects our topic sentence and our evidence together. And we have our summarizing statement. I know how to build that paragraph. And then I know how to build that paragraph and make it an essay. I know how to do that linear. So instead of having it be a theme where you're hitting all 3 of those categories within that theme, flip it around and have those 3 broad categories of reading, writing, and grammar. And then if you wanted to have a theme through it all, you could, but you've got to really be focused and intentional on the standard and the learning itself, not what the theme is. It's not the point, unless theme is the standard you're assessing. So that whole revamp part of it, just, I mean, it was so helpful. It was so helpful to hear that from her, and she's experienced it. So it's nice that I don't have to do this trial and error. I have literally just learned from somebody who has done it. And one of the other, so here's some takeaways with this too. If you are doing or have ever done a flipped classroom, you're halfway to personalized learning. Because videos are an integral part. Is there a spot for a lecture? Absolutely, there has to be. There has to be. But those things can be recorded instead. So if they were talking about if you don't want to dive in, dip your toe in the pond by trying a flipped classroom and then work your way to personalized learning. So the three broad categories for language arts was a huge takeaway for me. Knowing that if you wanted to take more of a baby step, and if you're not like, I don't think I could go full personalized and self-paced, then go flipped instead. That was another takeaway. And I've got a few more for you too. And we tend to structure things on a timeline. Everything is based on time. And as challenging as it is, we need to rethink that. And learning, here's a key, learning is independent of time. And there are other ways besides due dates to teach responsibility, though they were talking in during this institute about soft deadlines and hard deadlines. So this is the day that this is done. But you have all your check-in points. And if kids aren't quite there, there is no penalty. But you got to help them develop the plan. Okay, so you needed to have 3 pieces of evidence by Wednesday, and you only have your topic sentence on Wednesday. This is due on Friday. That's your hard deadline. So you need to create a plan for the next 3 days so you can meet that hard deadline of having it due Friday at 4. And guiding kids through that, because that's the life skill that they need. It's not just, oh, they're responsible or they're irresponsible. We have to teach them some skills to be responsible and to meet those deadlines. Because they might not know how to chunk that out. And that's our job, is to guide them through that aspect of it. So learning needs to be independent of time. And within that, you need to have soft deadlines for kids. It's more like a guide. And then hard deadlines. And for the language arts teacher, she said when she would do, I think actually both language arts teachers mentioned this, was that for writing and reading, you usually have the whole big chunk of time, but it's not usually the whole quarter. So say you're spending 4 weeks. So you have a month. Here's your hard deadline. And one of the teachers who teaches, the school is escaping me. They're in Wisconsin. The teacher's name is Adam Fisher. And he too had talked about that responsibility piece and learning being independent of time. and that, you got to kind of meet the kiddos where they are. So we have to be thinking of, you can still have your deadlines in there, but you have to be thinking about how can you be guiding them. And at that school, where in Wisconsin, 100% of the grades are summative. 0% are formative. So let's say, for example, first time you rode a bike, super common. Like, how many times did you fall? And then your summative assessment, you finally were able to ride your bike, and you've been riding your bike pretty much without incident since you were 7, however old. But what if, so you ride your bike safely and well, but I'm not going to actually I'm going to factor in all your falls. I'm going to factor in all your faults. I'm going to factor in all your failure, even though that's how you learn the best. I'm going to count it against you. No. That's not what it should be. And it's conferencing. That leads me into my next takeaway. Conferencing with kids is key and it's crucial. I'm going to say that again. Conferencing with kids is key and it's crucial. You cannot sit behind your desk and grade papers. That is not a thing. You are working while they are working, but you are working with individual kids. And you need to be talking with kids every class period, every single day, checking in. Because it's easier to catch those stumbles and guide them through that obstacle than it is at the very end to be like, where have you been for 4 weeks? Because they could probably turn around and ask you the same question. Where have you been helping me for the past 4 weeks? So conferencing is key for self-paced and personalized learning success for students. A mindset shift needs to take place when it comes to taking risks. So sometimes when people are presented with something new, it's always but what about this? But what about this? But what about this? Switch the question to what if instead. That's a mindset change that needs to happen if you really want to think about learning being independent of time, as well as the conferencing with kids. But I don't have the time. What if you made the time? What if you had kids reflecting on their learning? How much deeper would it go? Probably pretty dang deep. It'd be a lasting experience. Dave Burgess talks about that. It's a cornerstone for him is don't create a lesson, create an experience. And that, like in our hybrid model, I get 2 precious days with these kids face to face. I need to talk with that group of 15 kids or 17 kids. I need to talk with each one of those kids, each of those 2 days, face to face. We gotta talk. Because that's also a huge social emotional piece for them, right? Is that guidance through that. It's not always just about the work, but it's about the emotion of putting in the work. And the emotion of perseverance, and then the emotion of overcoming failure and frustration and confusion, and how we handle that. And then the success and the feeling of pride that comes with that. So I gotta guide them through the muck so they can be proud when they stand on top of the mountain. Another thing that I thought was really important, it was this whole idea of just like diving in. Like, here you go, here's all of your choices, here's a choice board, and you can do whatever you want, whenever you want, but here's your hard deadline. Like, that's like chaos. So this Adam Fisher really talked about scaffolding, and that at the start of 7th grade, they do a whole class novel. And so he talked about how it's really like guided choice. So they'll do the novel together. They'll talk about how you critically read. They'll talk about how you critically write. They'll talk about using evidence. Like they'll build and teach kids how to do these things. And then, say for example, when they do a writing prompt, he'll give them 3 writing prompts to choose from. You can pick from any of these 3 writing prompts because our focus is how we structure our evidence. That's what we're really focusing on, the evidence. I don't care which one you write about, but we're going to really zoom in on our evidence. And so giving them that guided choice, so you still have choice in there while you're scaffolding and building them up to be able to read well on their own. And then he said they moved into book clubs. And he said once they got to the book club, then it was just away they went. And he said the second year, they were just like so happy with how like the book club went that they started with that instead of the whole class novel. And he said it was fine, but it was not as awesome because they didn't have that base. They didn't have that scaffold. They didn't have those strategies in place to be able to do it as a small group or independently. So his big recommendation was you need to scaffold. I also attended I want to make sure I give her credit here, Kim Hanisch. And I didn't write down what school she was from, but she talked about another thing to do with scaffolding. So let's say, for example, that you do a short mini lesson and you want kids to, you're gonna create a PowerPoint. And I'm going to teach you some tips and tricks on how to create a really good PowerPoint. These are just some basic things to make a good one. And everybody makes PowerPoint on an animal, for example. Like you set your criteria, you get to pick your animal, but this is the thing you have to do. You have to do a PowerPoint, and I'll show you how to do that. And then the next time that you do some type of activity and you want them to do a presentation, you can say, okay, you all know how to do a PowerPoint, so you can do a PowerPoint or you can do a poster. And so I'm going to show you how you can do a poster, like a really good looking poster. And so here's some tips and tricks for that. So you can choose PowerPoint or poster. And then you would go, and you keep adding those things. So and now I'm going to show you a Prezi. And this is how you can, these are the cool things you can do with Prezi. So PowerPoint, poster, Prezi. And she also said she usually would add in or other proposed student idea. And I've done that before too, because I'm like, they know things, Powtoon and stuff like that I'm just not well versed at. And so if that's their jam and they want to do it and they are gung-ho about it, okay. So putting that in there. But she said a lot of them don't just nobody naturally knows how to make a PowerPoint. You have to explicitly teach them how to do that and your expectations for that. So even scaffolding, things like that. But when you're doing, for example, that whole class novel, where are you putting your choice? You're putting the choice in, what writing prompt are you going to pick? If you are forcing them to have this is the way that we are going to assess, then maybe the topic they pick is choice. So where's that balance? You can scaffold and guide them to the point of releasing them into independent, personalized learning where they have become more in charge of their learning and what they're how they're presenting their information and how they're showing you that they have learned, because you have built them up for that success. You have showed them different ways that they could do that, and now they can perform that way. So scaffolding is huge. And then the last big takeaway is class culture. And class culture is imperative for this to be successful. And Kim Hanisch talked about how, within your first couple of weeks, because we always say that, right? The first 2 weeks you shouldn't be touching content. It's all about class structure. It's about social emotional connections. It's about procedure. It's how do you log in on Schoology using the iPad and practicing turning in assignments. And hey, here's a cool app you can use. It's called GarageBand. And some of those like fun activities where there's no grades, there's nothing like that that's included in there. And so within those 2 weeks, you have to establish that class culture. And if that culture of learning and progression and acceptance of failure and acceptance of help and conferencing and understanding everybody learns differently and at different paces and everybody has different interests, if that's not there, it's not going to be successful. So that's something that needs to be included in that first 2 weeks, is establishing your class culture. So now, next step is to actually start building up that content, which I will be working on with my 7th grade team. We are able to have some autonomy, so there will be some things as far as, I might do something a little bit differently. But let's say, for example, that we're working on theme, and maybe I record a lecture on theme. One of our breakout sessions, or maybe it was a keynote speaker, I can't remember, talked about how it was really beneficial for each teacher to do their own recording. So I would record about theme, Deb would record about theme, Darla would record about theme, and Erin would record about theme. So all 4 of us would make our own, but we would make all 4 videos about theme available to our kids. Because I know that I have students in my classroom who are going to get it when they hear Deb explain it. Not me. So they might watch mine because I'm their teacher. So okay, well, I'm going to watch Miss Nelson's because obviously I should because she's my teacher. But I don't know, I'm not understanding the words that are coming out of her mouth. I don't get it. I don't get theme. And then maybe they jump over and they watch Deb's. And they're like, okay, I get it. I understand now. And now that I understand what she's saying, I kind of get where Miss Nelson was going with that. So now you're opening up more teachers to your kids than just you. How awesome is that? And one of the cautions with that was, yes, when you first start this, you might take theme, you might take characterization, you might take plot, and you might take conflict. And that's how you got to split it up for now. But then the next year, record a different video because you've already got the one on plot. So now you record your own about characterization. So you build that. So that was something that was really a neat little nugget of information. So you got to take a look at your standards. Think about those big ideas and skills. Consider if a theme is even appropriate or feasible. And in my case, it's really not. So how are you going to create that linear line? What are you going to start with? And then keep learning independent of time. Don't be afraid to take risks. Change your mindset so that you are a what-if teacher, not a but teacher. Make sure you are scaffolding, still offering voice and choice. Conferencing is key and crucial. And build that class culture. And you will be on your way to success with personalized learning. Dear teacher, you can do it.